Everybody, it's nice to have you here today. Uh, we had a very interesting week with regards to the euro, specifically with the euro, and also with the dollar. As you all know, they reached some sort of an agreement with regards to Greece, and as a result of that, we had a turnaround in the euro. And it was a pretty nice move. We had quite a big move in the euro, about 300, 400 basis point in the euro as a turnaround. And thus far, we will see if the closing of the week would indicate that this positive action will continue or not. So we're going to look at the euro in basically as a primary currency because of the reaction to the news. We're going to see how it works. Also, if we need to keep an eye on the gold and the precious metals. This is the chart for the gold. This is the chart for the copper. And anyway, this is the chart of the silver. So in essence, there has been a lot of news. It was a news-heavy kind of week, and next week too is going to be a news-heavy week. So today is the 23rd, so the week is going to start on the 25th. We have 5 trading weeks, 5 trading days. Then we will have the weekend, and that of course will be, that August 2nd will be on Tuesday the following week. So basically, we've got 6 trading days before the August 2nd deadline for the raising the debt ceiling. So that week we have to keep in mind that going into such a news event and having the politician playing the game of basketball with the US and the global economy, we will be expecting there will be a lot of volatility coming into the market and a lot of guessing that is going to take place in the currency space, because there is no real clarity if they are going to the end result. They will reach an agreement. The consequences of not reaching an agreement is very high, or basically unthinkable, if you will, because so it is very high probability that they will reach an agreement. The question is, how long will they take to abuse the financial system and people get into this guessing game while they play the negotiation to get to the deadline, or the last minute, God knows. And in that respect, we can see that all of what happened last week, you can see that the dollar have sold off most of last week. We see that the euro, this was Thursday, this big day. This was Thursday, the day the news came out that they have reached an agreement on Greece. Friday, after the news came out, you can see that we had this kind of slowdown, or a profit taking, whatever you want to call it, a decline, an easy, not a non-continuation, if you will, into the upside for the euro. That's something we have to take into consideration. If we look at the other currencies, which are the safe haven currencies, primarily the Swiss, we see that even on Thursday, even though we had a positive day in the euro and they have reached an agreement, you would see that the Swiss actually continued to strengthen on Thursday. and it actually slowed on Friday, but there is still buying coming in into the to the Swiss franc. If you look at the yen, this seems to be the one of the strongest currencies so far, even though it has closed near the high. The pound had a little bit of strength, and the Canadian also. So this is the global picture, and as you can see, there isn't really one currency that is standing out as a strong currency, and there is no one currency that is standing out as I am profoundly the weak currency. What that means is we're getting into a very volatile session or a volatile week due to the uncertainty, and this is not particularly a bad thing. Volatility is what makes us money. Movement like this is what makes us money. So we should not be scared of the volatility. Rather, we need to identify this volatility and pinpoint a point of entry. We like volatility, we strive on volatility, and that's what we need. Volatility, as I said, is what pays us money. Having a dead or a boring market actually eats away at our capital rather than makes us money. So what we are going to do now is we are going to try to identify so-called strength or weakness, even though we don't really have any clear indication by looking at the indexes. Again, if you look at the dollar, you could see that the dollar has been weakening all of last week. If I change the time frame to a weekly chart, you could see that we had a negative week, and we closed the week at 74.41, but that close is above the low of the week that ended July the 8th. That week was, the low of that week is 74.4. This week we traded as low as 74.12, and we came back and we closed the week at 74.41. This per se is not a screamingly positive buy, but yet it is a positive buy because we did not get the capitulation when it broke the 1, 2, 3, 4 week lows. It broke 20 days low, and we didn't get the capitulation. We actually had kind of a pullback to close above the 74.40, which is the 2 weeks low, and so that could be a telltale that we might get a move to the upside in the dollar. But in either case, worst case scenario, we have a clean short entry for the dollar. So we are not going to short the dollar right now. If you don't want to do anything with the dollar, if you want to be, you don't want to be a seller of the dollar unless it trades below, this is 74.40, so you want to have this as 74.40. So you have a very low risk sell on the dollar, because now we close the week at 74.41. Your selling point is 74.40. So even if you go long right now the dollar, your stop is about 1.5 basis point below that, and that is a low risk trade, and you have a high probability of actually it moving up. So that is a low risk, high probability trade. And of course, if it trades below the 74, we're going to go short the US dollar. Okay, so we have a minor buy signal on the dollar, and we have a tight sell signal on it also. The other currency that was in the news is the euro, and of course, as you have seen last week, it came right below the first structure point. Every light blue dashed line like this is how I identify my structure point. These color codes are the way that I can read the chart. For some of you that wants to know what these color codes mean, the dashed, small dashed line, these indicate, sienna line indicate a structure point. A yellow line means a reference point. Green means a buy signal. Red means a sell signal. So for the dollar, I have a red line. So what that means, if it gets below the 74.40, I have a sell signal. That's all what it means. But if it's a blue line, a dashed blue line like this is a structure point, this is a structure point, these are my structure points, these are the big buy and sell signals. Okay? So if we look at the euro, you can see that it went right to the structure point on the index of the 140.015, and then it turned around and it pushed all the way high, closing at 143.44. This is a very good close. It's a positive close, and it should indicate that we should continue higher. If we look at the big picture for the euro, you could see that we still, with all the noise that's happening in the euro, we still are in an uptrend that started in 2002. This is our momentum high, and we are trading at 143, so we're closer to the high than we are to the low, and we should be remaining positive. Right now it seems that the euro for the time being is kind of positive, so we will be staying, since it closed above 142.47 structure point, which is the light sienna line, then that's a positive for us, and we should be looking to continue at buying the euro. If we look at the British pound, also on a weekly base, that is quite a positive close for the British pound, and it closed the week at 162.96, and these are the trades that we really should be looking for and like, because when I have a trade that closes the week at 162.96 and I have a structure point at 162.33, this means I have a short or a close buy sell signal. If it gets below 162.33, then I have a sell signal, and as long as it stays above the 162.33, if it stays anywhere over here, then that is considered for me a buy signal with a tight stop. And you can see here, guys, for the turtles right there, even though I have this low red day, if you will, or a negative day, it's not yet a sell signal. So primarily as of this week, the dollar is the weakest currency, because all currencies now has traded to the upside against the dollar. This is the CAD, and this is the Swiss franc. You can see the Swiss franc, this has just been on a tear to the upside, and it's pretty much close to the all-time high. And last but not least is the Japanese yen. This so far seems to be the strongest currency. That's a very positive close, even though this little high that I have here is 127.49. It closed above that high, so we should be looking for a continuous or a continuation in the yen. And this is the Aussie. And believe it or not, the Australian dollar with this close seems to be the strongest currency this week. Last week it was the weakest currency, and then it flipped and we had this whole push to the upside. So with that, looking at the charts and see that the Australian dollar is the strongest so far. The US dollar is the weakest. When I say the weakest, again, we do have a minor buy signal on the dollar, so I'm just going to leave that as a slightly positive, even though I am looking for, if you, as I show, let me show you, we do have a minor, like I told you, closing above the 74. That is a slight buy. It's a neutral close. But the Aussie here closing at 107.82, the high, the all-time high for the Australian dollar is 108.22. That's the highest it has ever reached against the as a basket of currency. And this week it went as high as 107.96, or the 108. So we are still 22 points away from the high, and this might be now the magnet that's going to pull the Australian dollar for it to test. And this is because all the uncertainty that's happening in the US in the USA. So we will be looking at the Australian dollar as primarily the strongest, because so far it has the strongest close. If you look at the yen had the second strongest close. So also we'll go back the yen, and if you look at the Swiss franc, we can consider that a strong close, but not as strong as the Aussie and not as strong as the Japanese yen. So the Swiss now will be number 3. So the first is the Aussie, the second is the Japanese yen, and the third is the Swiss franc. If I'm going to put the euro if I look at the weekly chart, this is quite a positive close. So, but if I go down to a daily chart, I have a weak close on Friday. That week on close of Friday does not change the overall positive pattern that we have for the euro, but in the hierarchy it will put the euro as number 4 with regards to strength. So we always want to buy the strongest, then the second strongest, then the third strongest, then the fourth strongest. So we just create this hierarchy so that when we choose which, we want to buy the strongest of the strong and we sell the weakest of the weak. Last but not last, we got one more, which is the British pound, and the British pound is pretty much similar to the euro. We had a very positive Thursday, and we had kind of so the pound and the euro are pretty much in the same category. So this is how we're going to set the hierarchy. The Australian dollar is the strongest, then it is followed by the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc. After that we have the euro and the British pound, I'll give them the euro and the British pound. The one that actually gave us a real negative close, a big sell signal for the week, and that might be the one we should be looking at selling most of the coming week, is the Canadian dollar. This, guys, is now as you can see, guys, this is what we call the turtle soup trade, because right there you had a buy signal and right there you have the reversal. So I'm looking primarily to be short the Canadian dollar. That is the weakest of all currency as far as we're concerned right now. The CAD is the one that we are looking to be sellers of, and that is the one that is going to be, so the Canadian now is the weakest currency, or the one that has given me a triggered sell signal. So I'll be looking to buy the Aussie and sell the CAD. I'm looking to buy the yen and sell the CAD. I'm looking to buy the Swiss and the CAD, Euro CAD, Pound CAD. I'm looking to be a buyer of all of these. I also might be looking at the dollar CAD, but I will also begin to identify very close entries that the strong currencies like the Australian dollar would reverse, because if we have any positive news, the dollar, all these strong currency, the Aussie, the yen, and the Swiss have been going up based upon fear of what may happen in the United States. If within this next week we have any news of any positive news about the US, then we need to identify a point of reversal where now they are going to cover their shorts in the dollar and they will start buying. And the weary part, or the point that has to give us some pause, or we have to consider that point, is what we have seen, the close in the dollar index. That close is an indicator. I mean, sitting at 74.41, while the significant point is 74.40. This is not a structure point, this is a significant point. That 1 pip, 41 from 40, is not really a buy signal, but it is not a sell signal, but it is also not a sell signal, because this thing should have been selling off all the way down, and now for it to come back and to close above the 74.40 is a sign of something may be happening. So we always have to keep this in our minds, that there may be something now, the beginning of the informed money or the smart money coming in to try to buy the dollar at a cheaper rate. Okay, so to go back to our hierarchy, so before we don't forget, I don't want you to, so we're looking at buying the dollar, the Australian dollar, buying the yen, buying the Swiss franc, and buying the euro, all of them versus the Canadian. The Canadian would be the first one, the weakest one we are looking to sell. Then the second weakest is the dollar, and we will be careful on it. And then if the dollar begins to move, this is what I want you to see, guys. This is the dollar, okay? It is slightly positive or barely neutral. If this now turns very positive, if for whatever reason this turns to be very positive, then guess what? This will turn to be the most negative, then this. So now the one that's most positive, like now the Australian dollar, will turn around and become the most negative. The yen will be the second negative. The Swiss will be the third negative. Why? Because they are the ones that they will be taking profit at. Do you understand what I'm saying? So right now we're going to look at buying all the positive until we have a trigger in the US dollar. And once we have the trigger in the a positive trigger or a positive buy in the US dollar, then these positive pairs will be the first one to look to sell, because now they are going to be subject to a profit take. Okay? So as I said, we'll be looking at buying the Aussie CAD, the Yen CAD, the Swiss CAD, the Euro CAD, the Pound CAD, and we will be looking at also buying the Aussie Swiss, and buying the Aussie Yen, and looking at buying the Euro Swiss and the Euro Yen, the Pound Swiss and the Pound Yen. Okay, that is the plan for the week. And now I'm going to save the recording, and we're going to start